It's a fallacy that as countries get richer, emigration from them declines. As the American economist Michael Clemens has found, emigration from a country tends to rise until it reaches a level of income of about $10,000 per person before declining. World Bank data show that more than 3 billion people live in countries where the average income is below this threshold. The potential for migration to increase yet further is truly colossal. The raw numbers show how demand for migration, legal or otherwise, is likely to surge in the coming years. So too does personal testimony. A 2021 Gallup poll found that 16% of adults worldwide, around 900 million people, would like permanently to leave their own country. And those numbers are not evenly distributed around the world. 37% of people living in sub-Saharan Africa, some 481 million people, and 27% of those living in the Middle East and North Africa, around 156 million, say they'd like to migrate. The ease with which some of them might reach Europe poses a unique and deepening challenge. The fact is that our countries are exceptionally attractive. 4% of those polled by Gallup, approximately 40 million people, named Britain as their preferred destination. 18%, approximately 162 million people, named the USA. These numbers are respectively more than half of our current total populations. Now, those in favour of a more liberal approach when it comes to legal migration tend to say at this point, so what? Isn't it a good thing that people the world over want to come to the West and contribute? And why can't we absorb and welcome them? And wouldn't the problem of illegal migration be significantly reduced if we made it easier for people to come to our countries legally? Well, there are 4 core arguments in opposition to uncontrolled and illegal migration: the civic argument, the practical argument, the security argument, and the democratic argument. Firstly, the civic argument against uncontrolled and illegal migration. I believe that the nation-state is one of humanity's great civilizing forces. It creates a shared identity and a shared purpose. And that does not need to have a racial component. Typically, it binds people of different racial backgrounds together. Far from being an ugly emotion, patriotism stirs people to heroism and to kindness. It is the belief that we have specific obligations to others precisely because they are our fellow countrymen. And in order for nationality to be sustainable, economically, culturally, and in terms of public support, it needs to encompass everyone. That, in turn, means that the country cannot grow exponentially and still maintain the harmony needed for everyone to feel that we are all in this together. And let's remember something that is all too often forgotten. Integration inevitably takes time. If immigration is uncontrolled, it makes it harder for society to adapt and accommodate new cultures and customs, and for communities to meld together. Uncontrolled immigration, inadequate integration, and a misguided dogma of multiculturalism have proven a toxic combination for Europe over the last few decades. I'm not the first to point this out. In 2010, Angela Merkel gave a speech in which she acknowledged that multiculturalism had utterly failed. And then French President Nicolas Sarkozy and British Prime Minister David Cameron echoed similar sentiments shortly thereafter. Multiculturalism makes no demands of the incomer to integrate. It has failed because it allowed people to come to our society and live parallel lives in it. They could be in the society, but not of the society. And in extreme cases, they could pursue lives aimed at undermining the stability and threatening the security of our society. We are living with the consequence of that failure today. You can see it play out in the streets all over Europe, from Malmo to Paris, Brussels to Leicester. It is 13 years since Merkel gave her speech, and I'm not sure that very much has changed since. If people are not able to settle in our countries and start to think of themselves as British, American, French, or German, then something is going badly wrong. National identity is not something invented in an ivory tower or by advertising executives. The nation state has endured because it means something real to almost all of us, and that is true the world over. Given how much it matters, it must be protected. Saying so does not make one anti-immigrant, nor does it mean you're anti-immigration. I am the child of immigrants, and it's no betrayal of my parents' story to say that immigration must be controlled. There is an optimal level of immigration. It is not zero. But there has been more migration to the UK and Europe in the last 25 years than in all the time that went before. It has been too much, too quick, with too little thought given to integration and the impact on social cohesion. And the fact that the optimal level is hard to define and will vary across time and for different countries doesn't change that fundamental fact. Nor should it blind us from this simple truth. If cultural change is too rapid and too big, then what was already there is diluted. Eventually, it will disappear. Secondly, the practical argument against uncontrolled and illegal migration. The unprecedented rise in illegal migration to the UK via small boat crossings from France has put unsustainable pressure on the UK's asylum system and the British taxpayer. Approximately 109,000 people have illegally crossed the Channel via small boats since 2018, including 45,000 alone last year. Consequently, the cost of the UK's asylum system has roughly doubled in the last year and now stands at nearly £4 billion. A decade ago, the total cost of the taxpayer was around £500 million. The UK is now spending £8 million a day on accommodating migrants in hotels. And we are not unique in these challenges, of course. In March, roughly 1/3 of all hotel rooms in Ireland were being used to accommodate asylum seekers and refugees. In New York City is accommodating some 40,000 migrants in hotels. Earlier this month, New York's Democratic Mayor Eric Adams exclaimed that the migrants' crisis will destroy New York City. Recent analysis suggests that it will cost New York approximately $10 billion annually to support the roughly 110,000 asylum seekers who have arrived there after crossing the southern border this year. Unless countries can prevent or rapidly remove illegal migrants, pressures on the state will compound over time. Accommodation cannot be magicked out of thin air, nor can new schools, improved roads, extra police officers, additional healthcare, or any of the other public services upon which people rely. Immigration is behind at least 45% of demand for new housing in England. More than 1 in 5 births are to foreign-born mothers. Due to immigration and high birth rates among foreign-born mothers, English secondary schools will need to find an extra 213,000 places by 2026 compared to 2020. And then, of course, there are the direct financial costs. A 2014 study by University College London concluded that almost no illegal migrants end up paying in taxes what they gained from the state in benefits. Thirdly, the national security case against uncontrolled and illegal migration. Illegal migration also poses obvious threats to public safety and national security. UK police chiefs have warned me of heightened levels of criminality connected to some small boat arrivals, particularly in relation to drug crime, exploitation, and prostitution. People who choose to come across the Channel illegally from another safe country have already showed contempt for our laws. President Macron claimed that illegal migrants or those waiting for a residence permit accounted for more than half of crime in Paris. Illegal migration is increasingly a tool exploited by hostile states and those acting on their behalf. Vladimir Putin weaponized migration in 2021, sending thousands of asylum seekers via Belarus to try to cross into Poland and Lithuania. In March, Italy's defense minister said the exponential increase in the migratory phenomenon departing from African shores is also, to a not insignificant extent, part of a clear strategy of hybrid warfare that the Wagner division is implementing, using its considerable weight in some African countries. And fourthly, and perhaps most critically, the democratic case against uncontrolled and illegal migration. Opinion polls and successive national votes could not be clearer. People the world over want their governments to control their borders. The British public backed the UK's Rwanda partnership and the government's recent Illegal Migration Act by margins of about 2-1. 6 in 10 in red wall seats support stopping migrants in small boats from illegally entering the UK by using any means necessary. 72% of EU citizens are in favour of reinforcing EU external borders. And more than half of Americans said there was an invasion at the southern border when polled in August 2022. Who we allow to come into our country and become one of us is a fundamental issue. Without public consent, immigration is illegitimate. Dismissing as idiots or bigots those members of the public who express legitimate concerns is not merely unfair, it is dangerous. Europe is at a critical juncture. The EU must find a way to meet the challenge of illegal migration. Ursula von der Leyen's recent visit to Lampedusa demonstrates the Commission's recognition of the severity of the situation. Because failure to do so I fear, undermine the legitimacy of democratic institutions and create the conditions for more extreme politics. The UK is working closely with our European allies, both on the continent and in joint efforts upstream to combat the smuggling gangs and better secure Europe's borders. And we will always look for ways to deepen our cooperation on security. The most recent example is our new working arrangement with Frontex. To address where the solution to all of this might lie, I must first broach a taboo. One of the most significant but underappreciated factors contributing to the global migration crisis is the global asylum framework. By this, I mean the various well-intentioned legal conventions and treaties that say, in effect, if you are fleeing persecution somewhere, you are entitled to make a claim for asylum anywhere. And irrespective of whether you arrived illegally or passed through multiple safe countries along the way, a country must consider it. According to the UN, an estimated 50,000 people have died attempting dangerous and illegal migration since 2014, although the actual figure is almost certainly higher. About half of these deaths occurred while attempting to cross the Mediterranean. 1,000 people died last year trying to cross from Mexico to the US. And some 150 people have died attempting to cross the Channel by small boat, lorry, or other clandestine means in the last 5 years. All of these people were no doubt seeking a better life. Some, perhaps many, were genuine refugees, but not all of them were. Seeking asylum and seeking better economic prospects are not the same thing. Seeking refuge in the first safe country you reach, or shopping around for your preferred destination, are not the same thing.